Who is a priest? Well, if you turn on the news or look at religious writings, you'll find that many denominations believe that priests are ones who have been ordained by them, their specific group, or they lead a specific denomination or a group. But is that God's will? We look to God's word as we're commanded, Acts 17 and verse 11. And whenever we do, we find an answer that's far different from what you see in the religious world today. Yes, there was a separate priesthood. It began in the book of Exodus, 28th chapter, and verse 1, the Levitical priesthood. But you find that Jesus came to this earth in the book of Colossians, as described in chapter 2 and verse 14, that he took that old law out of the way, nailed it to the cross, he blotted it out. And so we look and we find that we're now under a new covenant that he himself established, according to Hebrews 10 and verse 9. And in that new covenant, you find we have one high priest, and that is Jesus himself, Hebrews 5 and verse 6, Hebrews 7 and verse 17. But you find that there are other priests, but again, not what you would think if you look to the worldly teaching. In God's words, you find in the book of 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter and verse 5, that ye, and he's talking about Christians, are lively stones built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. He goes on in verse 9 and says, you're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. In the book of Revelation in chapter 1 and verse 6, the writer there says that he's made us to be kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. So whenever we look to God's word about priests, well, God has ordained Christians as priests. The only priesthood that is found upon this earth and in heaven is the one that God has established. Christ is the head. He is the high priest. You find that individual Christians, those who submit unto his will, have been baptized into Christ and thus are part of his kingdom, are a kingdom of priests. The only priesthood on this earth that has a special power over others is made by man. And the only power they have is that given by man. But we're to be guided by God's word, not man's will. I pray that we'll all look and be satisfied with simply looking to God's word, being who he desires us to be and who Jesus died that we could be, his children. We can help you to know more about this. You have further questions, feel free to contact us.